The garbage bag hit the porch so hard that clothes exploded across the steps. "Get out!" 14-year-old Zara stumbled backward. The front door slammed in her face. Then came the sound that made her stomach drop. Click. The lock. "No!" Zara rushed forward and pounded on the door. "Dad! Dad! Please!" Nothing. "Dad!" Still nothing. The curtains moved. Her stepmother was watching, smiling. Zara's voice broke. "Please! Where am I supposed to go?" Sandra opened the door just enough to look her in the eye. Then she said something that made Zara's blood run cold. "Your father isn't coming." Zara froze. "What?" "I told him you ran away." The woman smiled wider. "He believes me." For a second, Zara couldn't breathe. "No." "Oh, yes." Sandra leaned closer. "As far as everyone knows, you're gone." The door started closing. "Wait." Sandra stopped. Her eyes drifted toward a ragged man standing across the street. Dirty clothes, worn shoes, a cardboard cup in his hand. A beggar. Sandra pointed at him. "There." Zara frowned. "What?" "That's your future." The door slammed shut. Zara stood motionless. The street suddenly felt enormous, empty, cold, terrifying. Then she heard footsteps, slow, steady, coming toward her. She turned. The beggar was crossing the road. Every instinct told her to run. Instead, she stood there clutching the garbage bag. The man stopped a few feet away. His eyes settled on her face, then on the house, then back to her. Something changed in his expression, something that made him suddenly look very different, very dangerous, very important. And when he finally spoke, his voice was calm enough to send a chill through her entire body. "Did she really throw you away?" Behind the curtain, Sandra laughed. At that moment, she thought she'd won. She had absolutely no idea that the biggest mistake of her life had just walked across the street. Welcome to Freddie Billionaire Story Besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. Nadine Carter found out on a Tuesday. She was standing in the hospital break room. 12-hour shift ahead, yogurt in one hand, phone in the other. She almost scrolled past the alert. Almost. Then the photo stopped her cold. A girl, 14, big brown eyes, and in the background, Sandra's smug expression caught by a camera she didn't notice. The headline read, "Prominent Atlanta businessman denies daughter abandonment claim. Teen found in Buckhead by local philanthropist." Nadine's yogurt hit the floor because that girl was Zara, her stepdaughter, the child of the man she'd loved for 6 years before he chose Sandra and his own comfort over everything else. The man who had promised her in writing, in a legal divorce agreement, that Zara would always be cared for. She was already in her car before her supervisor noticed she was gone. Nadine had met Zara when the girl was 8 years old. She fell in love with her in 45 minutes flat. That was how long it took for Zara to look up from her chapter book, push her glasses up her nose, and say with complete seriousness, "My dad said you were a nurse. Do you know what causes hiccups?" Because his explanation was scientifically inaccurate. 6 years of bedtime stories, school pickups, bad dream nights when Zara would appear in the doorway looking like the loneliest person alive. Then the divorce. Then Sandra. Then Nadine slowly, painfully erased from Zara's life because her ex-husband Gerald had lawyers, money, and the uncanny ability to look reasonable in any room. She'd lost the custody appeal 8 months ago, cried for 3 weeks, then put herself back together because that was what she did. She put herself back together, went back to work, told herself Zara was fine. Zara was not fine. The article named the man who found her only as a private donor. No photo, no full name, just one quote. She needed a safe place. That's what we provided. 40 minutes of phone calls, 3 dead ends. Then finally a tired woman gave her a name. Dominic Ez. Nadine looked him up. Dominic Ez, Nigerian-American, 54, founder of Eze Capital Group, worth somewhere between 4 and 6 billion depending on which publication you believed. Reclusive, philanthropic, rarely photographed. She stared at the screen. Then she called the number, fully expecting voicemail, fully expecting to be dismissed. He answered on the second ring. "Mr. Ease." Her voice came out like gravel. "My name is Nadine Carter. I believe you have my daughter." Silence, not cold, just careful. "She's been asking about you for 3 days," he said. "So I'd say that makes you the most important person in this conversation. When can you be here?" She drove to a quiet part of Buckhead she hadn't known existed, a converted Victorian. No sign, no advertising, Just a building that did real work without needing anyone to notice. The man who met her at the door was not what she expected. Tall, broad-shouldered, plain dark sweater, worn jeans with actual dirt on the knee. No suit, no entourage, no performance. He looked like someone who worked instead of someone who performed working. His face carried a specific kind of tired, the kind that comes from carrying something heavy for a very long time. "Miss Carter," he said, and extended his hand. She didn't shake it long. "Where is she?" "Inside. She's fine." He held the door open. "She's been doing homework for 2 hours. She asked for a calculus workbook." "She's 14. "I'm aware. I found her one." Nadine walked inside, and there she was. Zara, older than Nadine remembered, contacts now instead of glasses, eyes red from crying she was pretending hadn't happened. She looked up. Mama Nadine. And just like that, both of them fell apart. They held each other for a long time. Dominic stepped into the hallway and gave them the room. Later, Zara asleep in the back office, body finally surrendering after 3 days of running on fear. Nadine sat across from Dominic, 2 cups of coffee, no small talk. "Sandra told my ex-husband she ran away," Nadine said. "He believed her, or he chose to." "I know." Dominic's voice was even. "I called Gerald Caldwell this afternoon." Nadine looked up sharply. "You called Gerald?" "I told him his daughter had been found, that she was safe, that my legal team was documenting everything." He paused. "He told me it was a family matter and none of my business." "What did you say?" "I said a child on a public sidewalk with a garbage bag full of clothes is everyone's business." Nadine studied him. He wasn't performing. He wasn't auditioning for her gratitude. He was just steady, like a man who had decided what was right and done it without needing applause. "Why were you there?" she asked. "That neighborhood. You don't belong there." Something shifted in his face. Not defensiveness, recognition. "I grew up 3 blocks from where I found her," he said. "I go back sometimes." She didn't push, but she filed it away. "What happens now?" she asked. "That depends on you. What do you want?" "I want my daughter back, legally, officially, permanently." No trembling. She'd decided hours ago that fear wasn't useful here. "Sandra won't let that go quietly. Neither will Gerald. He has better lawyers than I do." "Not anymore," Dominic said simply. Nadine stared at him. "My legal team has been idle for 6 months," he said. "I think they'd find this considerably more interesting." He met her eyes. "With your permission." She should have said no. She had a whole speech for moments like this. She'd given it to her sister, her coworkers, her therapist. What came out instead was, "Why?" He was quiet. Then, "That girl in there asked me the first night if there was anyone who actually wanted her." He looked down at his coffee. "I told her yes. I'd prefer not to be a liar." Nadine felt something move in her chest. Not attraction, not yet. Something older, something she hadn't felt in years. She felt seen. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you." The next 3 weeks were the most exhausting of Nadine's recent life, and the most unexpectedly human. Gerald didn't give up easily. His lawyers filed 3 separate motions. Sandra gave a tearful interview to a lifestyle blog about the troubled teenagers she'd tried so hard to help. 2 of Nadine's former colleagues were quietly contacted and asked to provide character assessments. Through all of it, Dominic's legal team was a quiet, immovable wall. But what Nadine didn't expect was Dominic himself. He called every few days, not to report on the case. His lawyers handled that. He called to check on her. Short calls, never longer than 10 minutes. "How are you sleeping? Have you eaten today? Is Zara adjusting?" The first time he called just to tell her about a calculus problem Zara had explained to him, Nadine sat down on her kitchen floor and laughed for the first time in months. "She corrected you," Nadine said. "Twice, very politely." He sounded genuinely delighted. She said, "No offense, Mr. Ease, but I think you're confusing the chain rule with the product rule." Then she drew me a diagram. "That's Zara. She's extraordinary." A pause. "So are you." "For the record." Nadine went quiet. She could feel herself wanting to deflect, to say, "Oh, I'm just tired. It's nothing special." All the automatic ways she'd learned to make herself smaller. She chose not to. "Thank you," she said instead. "You're welcome." No performance, no agenda, just 2 words that landed clean. She stayed on the kitchen floor for 10 more minutes after they hung up, not entirely sure what to do with the feeling in her chest. The custody hearing was a Friday in October. Nadine knew this courtroom. She'd sat in it before. She knew the specific exhaustion of waiting for a stranger to decide your life. She knew how to hold her face perfectly still while her insides turned to ash. What she didn't know was how to feel about Dominic sitting 2 rows behind her. He hadn't announced it. Just a text that morning. "I'll be there if that's all right." She'd stared at it for a full minute before typing back, "Okay." 4 hours. Gerald's team painted her as financially unstable, professionally distracted, emotionally unfit. Sandra sat beside him in a cream blazer, looking like a woman who had already won. Dominic's legal team didn't raise their voices once. They just entered evidence, documented texts from Sandra to Zara, teacher testimonies, a timeline that dismantled Sandra's runaway story piece by piece. Calm, thorough, relentless. When the judge ruled in Nadine's favor, she walked into the hallway, sat down on a bench, and simply breathed. Dominic sat beside her. No words, no celebration. He just sat there, solid as stone, while she pressed her hands against her knees and waited for the shaking to stop. "I didn't cry," she said finally. "No. I wanted to." She exhaled slowly. "I've been holding that since August." "You can cry now if you want," he said quietly. "I won't tell anyone." She almost laughed. "I'm fine." She looked at him sideways. "Thank you. I keep saying that, and it keeps not feeling like enough." He shook his head. "You don't owe me anything." Dominic, she used his name deliberately. They'd been on first names for 2 weeks, but she still used it carefully, like something she didn't want to wear out. Nobody does this much for a stranger's child unless it means something to them. A long silence. "I told you I grew up near where I found her," he said. "Yes." "I was 12 when my parents separated. My mother couldn't keep the apartment. For about 3 months, we stayed in whatever we could find." He paused. "There was a woman in our building, a stranger, she noticed, brought food, made calls, sat with my mother during the worst of it without being asked and without making us feel like charity." He looked at Nadine directly. "She passed away 4 years ago. I went to her funeral. Her family had no idea who I was. That I'd built an entire organization, partly because of what she did for a 12-year-old boy who was scared and hungry and trying very hard not to show it." Nadine was completely still. "You remind me of her," he said. "The way you love that girl, the way you fought for her." Nadine didn't speak for a moment. She was used to being overlooked, being the functional one, the responsible one, the woman who held everything together while nobody noticed. Being seen was disorienting. "I'm not selfless," she said honestly. "I love Zara. That's not virtue. That's just love. Maybe." The corner of his mouth moved. "Still counts." Zara came home on a Sunday. 2 boxes, 1 plant. She'd insisted on bringing it from the resource center because she'd been watering it for 3 weeks and it needed consistency. She walked through Nadine's apartment, cataloging every detail, then stood in the middle of the living room and said, "It's smaller than our old house." "Yes," Nadine agreed. "I like it better." Zara positioned the plant on the windowsill 3 different ways before deciding. Sandra's house never felt like anything except Sandra's house. Nadine didn't fill the silence. She just let it sit. "Is Mr. Ez coming for dinner?" Zara asked casually, still not turning around. "No." "Why would he be?" "Because he asked me last week what your favorite food was." She turned and looked at Nadine with the full, unnerving directness of a very intelligent teenager. "I told him jollof rice with fried plantain. He wrote it down." Nadine opened her mouth, closed it. "Mama." "Nadine." Zara's voice dropped, softer now, older than 14 had any right to sound. "He's a good person. I can tell. And you've been lonely since the divorce. I noticed even when you didn't say anything. You were 8 when the divorce happened." "I was observant." She shrugged and went back to her plant. "Just don't push him away because you're scared. That would be annoying." Dominic called that evening while Nadine was washing dishes. Zara was at the table destroying mathematics. "She's home?" he asked. "She's home." Nadine switched the phone to her other ear. "Currently making me feel inadequate about 8th grade math." "Good." Quiet relief in his voice. Real relief. "How are you?" Tired, overwhelmed, grateful, a pause, cautiously optimistic, which is as close to happy as I get these days. That's enough for now, he said. She leaned against the counter. Outside, Atlanta was doing its slow, golden collapse into night. The city completely indifferent to the small, significant things happening inside ordinary apartments. Zara told me you asked about my favorite food, she said. A beat. Did she? She also gave me unsolicited opinions about my personal life that were frankly more accurate than anything my therapist has said recently. He laughed, low and genuine. Nadine felt it somewhere in her chest. I was going to ask if you'd have dinner with me, he said. Separately from the case, separately from everything else. A careful pause. If that would be all right. She took one slow breath. Yes, she said. That would be all right. The restaurant was quiet. Virginia Highland, the kind of place that didn't need to advertise. No performance, no spectacle. They sat across from each other for 3 hours and talked the way people talk when they've stopped trying to impress each other. His mother, who called every Sunday and refused to stop worrying. Nadine's sister, who sent care packages with passive-aggressive notes tucked inside. What it felt like to build something and then wonder if you'd built it at the cost of something else. My marriage ended 5 years ago, he said. She wasn't wrong about what she said. I was never fully present. Work was easier than intimacy. He looked at his wine glass. I've spent 5 years understanding why and deciding what to do about it. What did you decide? Nadine asked. He looked at her with that steadiness she'd come to recognize, the look that meant he'd already chosen his words carefully. That I'd rather risk being fully present than spend another 5 years being strategically unavailable? Nadine set down her fork. That's honest, she said. I'm working on it, he said. The honesty. She looked at him across that quiet table. This large, careful, complicated man who had found her daughter on a sidewalk and moved the full weight of his world to make things right. Now sitting across from her, admitting his own failures with the specific vulnerability of someone who didn't do it often. She thought about her marriage, all the time she'd swallowed her own needs to keep the peace. All the exhausting, invisible work of being the backbone of a household that never once acknowledged her as anything except functional. She thought about who she was trying to become now. I'm scared of this, she said. Honest, no performance. I'm good at protecting other people, terrible at protecting myself. I know. No condescension, no fix, just acknowledgement. I noticed. That doesn't scare you off? No. He held her gaze. It makes me more careful with you. Not less interested. Nadine let the feeling sit without running from it. Okay, she said quietly. Not surrender. A choice. 3 months later, Sandra filed a harassment suit against Dominic's legal team. Frivolous. Everyone knew it, but it made headlines for 48 hours. And those 48 hours included 2 photographs of Nadine and Dominic leaving the restaurant in Virginia Highland and a breathless article speculating about their relationship. Nadine sat at her kitchen table reading it, coffee going cold, that specific dread settling in her stomach like a stone. Dominic arrived 40 minutes later. She hadn't called him. He'd seen the article and come without being asked. You didn't have to come, she said. I know. He sat down across from her. Do you want me to leave? She looked at him, tie loose, jacket over his arm, the look of a man who'd moved fast without stopping to compose himself. No armor, no performance. No, she said. Gerald is going to use this. His lawyers are already going to file something about my stability. They already did, Dominic said. This morning. She closed her eyes. My team filed a counter-motion before noon. His voice stayed steady. Nadine, look at me. She opened her eyes. I'm not going anywhere. Simple, clean, no drama. I'm not the kind of man who disappears when things get inconvenient. You barely know me. I know you well enough. He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. First time he'd touched her with any real intention. Warm, deliberate. I know you work 12-hour shifts and still read Zara to sleep. I know you apologize for things that aren't your fault. I know you take your coffee without sugar because somewhere along the way you decided you didn't deserve sweetness in small things. Nadine's throat tightened. That last part, he said, I'd like to argue with, if you'll let me. She turned her hand over under his, held it. Zara told me, she said, voice unsteady now, the kind of unsteady she usually fought back down. She said I should stop pushing people away because I'm scared. Said it would be annoying. His mouth moved, almost a smile. She's right. She usually is. Nadine exhaled. 14 years old and already wiser than everyone around her. She learned that from somewhere, Dominic said. 6 months later. Saturday morning. Zara at a math competition. Atlanta doing something rare, with the light golden and clean, in a way the city only managed a few times a year. Dominic stood in Nadine's small kitchen making coffee. Nadine sat at the table and watched him. No grand moment, no dramatic backdrop. Just this. Just him. Just the ordinary morning wait of someone who kept showing up. Her phone buzzed. Zara. A photo. Trophy held up with both hands. The widest grin Nadine had seen in years. 14 exclamation points. She showed Dominic. He looked at the photo for a long moment, set down the coffee, and something moved across his face that she didn't have a word for exactly tender and proud and quietly overwhelmed in the way of someone who hadn't expected to feel this much. She's going to be extraordinary, he said. She already is, Nadine said. He handed her the coffee. No sugar, same as always. Except this morning there was one small, deliberate spoonful at the bottom. She looked up at him. Arguing my case in small increments, he said. Completely serious. Nadine looked at the coffee, looked at him, and then she said it. Not dramatically, not as confession, as fact, the same way she delivered important information clearly without hedging. I love you. He went very still. Then, I know. Low, warm. I've known since you told that judge you would not be separated from a child you didn't give birth to. You used the exact same tone you'd use to tell me a patient's blood pressure. She laughed. Real. Uncomplicated. From somewhere that hadn't hurt in a long time. I love you, he said, in case that needed saying out loud. Outside, Atlanta hummed its usual indifferent rhythm. Somewhere across the city, Zara was holding a trophy and already thinking about what came next. And in a small kitchen in a small apartment, two people who had both been broken in their own ways sat together and held something improbable and ordinary and entirely earned, the miracle of choosing each other. Sandra had given her stepdaughter to a beggar. She had no idea she'd handed her to the man who would change everything. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. Drop a comment and tell me when was the last time someone truly saw you. See you in the next story.